Hi everyone, Julie is here. I'm glad to see in my channel your Friday solution. And the theme today's video will be Lusitania. So let's begin. How many events in our lives hiding behind a veil of lies, and not just one? And ask the question about the biggest catastrophe of 20th century, the most of people will probably remember the Titanic. But if you're inquisitive, you were probably interested in the real version of why this happened. Why, in order to eliminate other opponents of the FRS in the amount of 240 people, thousands' destiny were mercilessly destroyed, even the ones written in the book Titan. But this is far from the only ship that is connected by sad fate with the island and its inhabitants. And today we will talk about Lusitania. The release divided into two parts, keep in mind. Let me start with incident.
On May 7, 1915, the German submarine U-20 torpedoed the British passenger liner Lusitania off the coast of Ireland. The ship sank within 18 minutes. 1,198 people died out of 1,958. According to the Extraordinary Investigation Commission, there were 82 Russian passengers on the ship and 20 managed to escape. The incident set public opinion in many countries against Germany, as well as ultimately contributed to the entry of the United States into the First World War.
Well, you and I know that in our time a lot of provocation. That's why it's important not to fall for them. In the open spaces, you can find a significant number of investigations, versions, but I want to focus you on critical thinking, on logic, where each of you can reflect on the fact that everything different than it seems. In addition, we all know very well that theory is always different from practice. So, what do we know about the Lusitania, the fastest liner of the Atlantic? At the turn of the 19th and 20th century, two shipping companies competed in the UK in the field of transatlantic transportation, White Star Line and Cunard Line.
The hallmark of the first of these were the projects Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic. They amassed contemporaries with their size, high level of comfort, and luxury, but they had average speed characteristics. Each of the three liners was like an entire city, with a swimming pool, hammam, gym, and over-entertainment. The Cunard Line liners, Lusitania, Mauritania, and Aquitania, had fewer amenities and were interior in size, but they significantly outperformed competing ships in speed.
Specifically, the Lusitania project was created in the USA in 1902, when the American banker Morgan suggested that British owners build huge ships with the participation of American capital that would bring to life the latest achievements of science and technology. The name of banker, in my opinion, already speaks for itself and reveals the secret of the global goals.
These ships were called ocean hounds. They constantly competed with their German counterparts for the Blue Ribbon, an honorary prize awarded to ocean liners for the speed record when crossing the Atlantic. Thus, the Lusitania in 1909 beat the achievement of the German ship Kronprinz Wilhelm, which had been held for 7 years. Lucy managed to reach North America in 4 days, 16 hours and 40 minutes, traveling at an average speed of 25.85 knots. Lucy surpassed any submarine by an average of 10 knots. The military assigned the liner the status of an auxiliary cruiser.
But for sure, a military submarine outperforms a liner in speed. Besides, the Germans, with their underground cities and other opportunities available to them not from this world. Name: Lusitania got its name from the ancient Roman province in the western part of the Iberian Peninsula. I wonder if it's for what merit.
So there must be some kind of connection, but so far all that we know, according to the official history, is that the name of the province came from the Indo-European tribe of the Lusitans, who underwent Romanization and later became part of the Portuguese nation. Moreover, the tribe is considered a people without a history. Allegedly, before the conquest by the Romans they had no records. But let's have a separate language, territory, and even own religion, which already contradicts the lack of history. It's more likely that the Romans destroyed the evidence. It's easier to believe. Digging further, there are versions that the ancestors came from the Alps, Iberia, that they are Celts, confusing mixed up right with pleasure.
Who built the ship and why? The British government allocated the part of the funds for construction of the vessel, provided that it could be requisitioned for military purpose at any time. Foresight or planning? By the way, subscribe to my channel, mark the bell in order not to miss new release, and push the button if you like this video. Move on.
Starting from 1914, modern passenger ships were converted into transport for the transfer of military contingents or into floating hospitals. For the time being, the Lusitania was not touched due to the high consumption of coal, which made its operation by the military too costly. It remained one of the few liners that cruised the Atlantic and transported people from the Old World to the New and back. However, in order to reduce costs from the Lusitania, they achieved a reduction in monthly flights. 4 of its boilers were sealed. From now on, the maximum speed of the record-breaking ship did not exceed 21 knots. But even now, the Lusitania remained the fastest commercial liner in the Atlantic Ocean. ONS. On April 24, 1915, the Lusitania arrived in New York from Liverpool on its 201st flight. The ship's crew was led by Captain William Turner, who called himself the Sea Wolf of the old school. But now, in wartime, the sailors of the merchant fleet had to obey the orders of the naval officer of the Admiralty. Navy sailors determined the course of merchant ships and reported secret information about enemy submarines. British naval intelligence could determine exactly where the German submarine sent to carry out a combat mission was located on the high seas. The British received the secret radio codes of the German fleet. Radio stations on the coast of England waited patiently, while the German submarines, who were in the high seas, gave radio signals with meticulous accuracy.
But Captain Turner was not given a warning about the German submarines, either in the port of New York, where the officer of British Navy was located, or the coast of Ireland, where Lusitania entered the coverage area of coastal radio stations.
But the radiogram was not transmitted by the Naval Command, but by Admiral Cook, commander of the anti-submarine flotilla. He rightly determined the area of the submarine after receiving reports of the loss of 2 small steamers. Cook knew that the Lusitania was approaching the submarine, but the admiral could not put the anti-submarine flotilla into the sea without an order from the Admiralty, and such an order was not received. Captain Turner received a radio message as the liner was approaching St. George's Channel, and only on the evening of May 6, a German submarine is located off the southern coast of Ireland. And in peaceful days, the strait was a serious test even for experienced sailors, and in the days of the war, it became doubly dangerous. At the entrance to the strait, German submarines lay in wait for prey, but Captain Turner could not change the course of the ship without an order from the Admiralty officer, or, in extreme cases, from the commander of a warship. Before the return flight, the German embassy in the United States saw fit to warn passengers of the high risk and strongly advised them not to travel for fear of dire consequences. In the Atlantic, an unlimited submarine war was in full swing. Germany and Great Britain sought to disrupt each other, Atlantic communications, and establish a naval blockade. So far, the warring parties have usually attacked military vessels, but commercial ones have also been attacked. Before the U-20 attack on the Lusitania, the Germans managed to sink several British ships. They launched a particularly cruel hunt near the British Isles.
So, what happened next? And then, nevertheless, Captain Turner decided to go to sea because there was still no all-clear command.
The sailing took place on May 1st, and on May 5th and 6th, the Admiralty received news of the sinking of 3 ships by the German submarine U-20 under the command of Walter Schweger. Having received a warning that an enemy submarine was operating off the southern coast of Ireland, Turner took every precautions. He ordered to close watertight doors, batten down all windows, double the number of observers, and uncover lifeboats. Told the passengers that the possibility of the appearance of enemy submarines was not ruled out. But we are sure, the captain added, that we will not be left alone because the Royal Navy is guarding us. There were not empty words. Off the coast of Ireland, at Cape Fastness-Rock, Atlantic liners usually expected escort English cruisers. However, the captain who kept the ship closer to land mistakenly believed that German submarines were dangerous only on the high seas and would not dare to attack near the coast. At about 1 p.m., the liner was spotted by one of the U-20 sailors, and at 40 minutes at 1 o'clock, Captain Schwader was reported about the approaching ship with 4 pipes and 2 masts. He examined the Lusitania through the periscope and decided to attack the target. The meeting of the hunter and the victim happened largely by accident. The submarine by the time had used up most of the fuel and planned to return to base, bypassing Ireland from the east side. Turner, on the contrary, in order to avoid meeting with the enemy, corrected course a few hours before the tragedy. A collision with a dense fog about 30 nautical miles from the Irish coast caused the Lusitania to reduce her speed to 18 knots. And as you may have guessed, there was not a single Royal Navy warship nearby. The British Admiralty and the Minister Churchill, who could have been without him, not only did not straighten security measures, but showed a strange nonchalance.
And let's digress for a moment. Are mistakes accidental and it possible to call their actions erroneous?
Since February 1915, when Germany began the submarine war, the British Admiralty has been trying to find an effective means to combat enemy submarines. England suffered heavy losses. On average, the British lost 1 large merchant ship every 2 days. At the same time, German submarines dealt a heavy blow to the reputation and pride of the Minister of Navy, Churchill.
It turned out that the technical means of combating submarines used by fleet are clearly insufficient. Therefore, the question's legitimate. Could the Admiralty, headed by Churchill, fulfill its task of defending the country? And perhaps it was precisely the political solution of the problem. saved not only Churchill but the cabinet of ministers from the shameful resignation.
In the spring of 1915, the personal representative of the President of the United States, Colonel House, appears in London. He was supposed to explain U.S. policy to the British government. British Foreign Secretary Grey receives House at his home. Grey asks frank questions, the essence of which boiled down to the following: what will Uncle Sam do if the German submarine sinks an ocean liner with Americans on board? House replied that resentment would sweep America. Grey agreed. Yes, there are many moralists in America, but what political response will follow from the government and the president? And House admits that this will be enough to engage us in a war. Text that speaks for itself. The intermediate destination, the port of Queenstown, was 43 miles away. Then 10 minutes at 2 p.m., the starboard side of the liner was hit by a torpedo, falling under the captain's bridge. Let's continue in the next part.
Well, I said so much, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about. See you in the next thematic video.